topics from the soul. Hot topics from the soul.
Good evening and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker Hagan, and I'm so delighted to be here with you this Tuesday. I have my co-host along with me.
And good evening, good evening. And this is Dr. J.R. Thicklett, and I'm so glad that you all have taken the time to join us this evening. We're looking forward to a very interactive and a very, if you would, very much timely and needed show tonight. So I want you to share right now as you're watching, share with someone, listen in, and let's hear from you tonight.
Absolutely. We're talking about breaking free from abuse. Dr. J, there's so many different levels of abuse. You know, one of the main um, signs of abuse is control,
Yes, absolutely.
manipulation, domination. You know,
Mhm.
when anytime an individual allows you, pressures you to do something outside of your normal will or your habitation, that is abuse. Bullying is also a sign of abuse. We used to
Definitely.
talk about bullies in school like it was no big deal, but that is domestic violence. When you have someone constantly harassing you mentally, emotionally, and wanting to fight you where you fear for your life, you know, it's another level of engagement, this dispensation that we're in right now. Before, we used to worry about the bully taking our lunch money. Now they playing for keeps.
Exactly. And that's the thing about it is that it's not that domestic violence have changed or abusive relationships have changed. It's that we understand that we are looking at more than just physical abuse. We're looking at what is it that sets the background? What is it that sets the platform or the atmosphere where abuse can thrive? Or how do people find themselves in abusive relationships and and are surprised when it does turn to the severe form of violence? And you talk about the thing, these early things that you see when a person is controlling, when they're coercive, and some things we accept as being norm. We'll say, well, that's just how they are. That's just a personality. But we cannot afford to be dismissive or minimize that type of behavior because it is giving us signs of what's possibly to come.
And a lot of times, Dr. J, especially women, I don't know how it relates to men. Maybe you could speak about that. But a lot of times, women associate control with love. They feel that, oh, he just doing that because he loved me. You go to the store, as soon as you walk out the door, the phone is ringing. Where you at? Well, I just left. I'm on my way to the store. You there 5 minutes. You in the store yet? No, I'm still trying to get there. Okay. Then you get to the store. Okay, what are you doing? What aisle are you in? That is not love. That is not where he's caring. That is manipulation, making sure that they calculate all your time and what it is that you're doing, so that if you deviate from that path that they are accustomed to you living by, then they become suspicious. So control and manipulation is not love.
No, it's not. And the thing about it is, not only is it not love, we have to understand the mindset. The mindset. Abusive person tries to basically do what? Isolate you or limit your control to social connections to people, family. They isolate you. They can isolate you in many ways, and depending on the way you're wired, you may feel as if maybe this is this person. They just love me. They want to, they want me to themselves, and they don't know why they're messing up our good thing, and all those things that sometimes we may talk ourselves into believing. But at the end of the day, here's the thing, that it's a litmus test. This person have isolated me, separated me from any social connection, from family members, or from people that we know that care. Often said, it's very simple. We as human beings have a need for connection. We have a need for connection with people outside of ourselves. That's why when you think about friendships that you have, there's no one friend that comes with everything that you need, right? Some friends bring the humor, other friends bring the analytical, other friends are, yeah, they're just so smart. Everyone has something that they bring. When we begin to see a person begin to, if you would, impute and become limited and isolating and manipulating, or when we begin to see excessive jealousy, right? Excessive jealousy or possessiveness, these are early warning signs that we need to look at. And you got to understand those things that we need to take a good look at, because like I often say, abuse is not necessarily just physical. Long before a perpetrator, an abuser, beats a person up, they beat them down with words. They beat them down with accusation. They beat them down with making them feel unstable. So those things are important, and we have to be very careful. And I think you said something that was so important when you gave the example about you just trying to get to the store. Well, you've been called 4 or 5 times before you ever got there. You know, excessive monitoring everything about you, checking your phone, your email, your social media. What's up with that? Always accusing you of what? Cheating, of being jealous. Those could be also signs that you have to look at as well, because the fact the person who's excessively jealous understands something. That is a warning sign. They check everything. They check your vehicle. They check to see how many miles you went. All of those things there. Now, watch this. This may be overlooked and minimized, but I'm telling you, you don't want to do so, because it's giving you an indication of the need for control, right? The need to exert power and control. Those are the 2 main elements inside of addressing domestic violence. Power is something. Folks get intoxicated with power. They love power because power gives them status. Power gives them meaning. And that power that oftentimes that they inflict upon that victim, and oftentimes unsuspecting victim, gives them the rush, but it puts a hush in the victim.
Absolutely, Dr. J. And you know, one of the weapons they use is sexual abuse. They
Yes.
control and manipulate you through sex, and thinking that's the way, that's their love language, how they show you how much they care for you, because they want to always sex your body. They want to always kiss on you. They always pulling and tugging on you. And you associate that with, oh, he just loves me. He just can't keep his hands off me, literally. So we have to be careful with these dynamics, because it will affect you. And even if you have a job, it will affect you in the workplace and make you feel even uncomfortable and unstable mentally there, where you're unable to function at your workstation.
Well, you're exactly right, because when you start talking about this type of abuse, what happens is that it affects you emotionally and mentally. You start feeling a certain way, being affected emotionally and mentally. And so now what's happening is that it disturbs your sense of peace. It disturbs your sense of being able to rationalize even on the job. And so we have to think about it. You know, oftentimes when victims go through things, you know, when they have that moment of downtime and silence, that's when it really hits them. They feel burdened down, right? They begin to recognize the destructive behavior that is being, if you would, carried out by that person, that significant other. Things like what? Damaging your property. Why did they do that? Why did they flatten your tires, or why did they do certain things there to damage your property? Because they know that it meant something to you.
Exactly.
Your belongings. I've seen every type of case. They destroy belongings. I've seen people take clothes and bleach them and things, hurting pets or threatening your children. Those are all signs of.
Yeah, that's a real dangerous sign, Dr. J, when they manipulate you through your children.
Yes, absolutely. Now it's getting really close to the danger point, because now the children become part of the control. The children become weaponized even against you. And so those are things we have to look at in terms of abusive relations. But it's confusing. It's confusing to some people, because the fact, by the same token, many abusers can be so charming. They can be so loving and manipulative.
Mine was charming.
Yes.
That's
Gotcha.
how he got
Right.
me. He was charming, manipulating, and he was a minister. So I
Mhm.
thought everything was okay. And I fell into that trap. Oh, he just checking on me because he loves me so much. He can't, do without talking to me every hour and stuff. Got caught up. We got married and it intensified. Uh, so that's why I can speak about this from, you know, uh, wisdom and knowledge that I've gained through walking through this process. I know what it is to have black eyes. I know what it is to be
Yeah.
punched and stomped in the stomach and kicked in the head. I went through all of that trauma and I'm still standing. But unfortunately, Dr. J, a lot of women and men don't make it out because men are also victims of domestic
Exactly.
violence. And I want you to speak more about that as well, Dr. J, because men cry in the dark because they don't
Absolutely.
want their bros to know that they're being abused.
Well, you hit it on the head because when you start talking about men, then we start talking about what is considered societal norms and what isn't societal norm. 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence in a lifetime. 1 in 9 men will experience it as well. And although a good percentage of those men experience it may come from same-sex relationship, it does not mean that they're not in heterosexual relationship that can become abusive as well. Control, manipulation, once again. Promises and letdowns.
Yeah.
Those things there, manipulation by, if you would, using you, minimizing you, uh, getting you to do things, threatening, if you don't do this, I'm going to hurt myself, or saying,
Yes.
you don't
Yes.
love me, you don't really love me, that's why you won't do this. And so now you're trying to prove to them that you love them and things, and find yourself getting deeply involved inside of these abusive relationships. And so when we talk about this, although we know that that majority of domestic violence is committed by men toward women, let's not confuse the fact there are men that suffer in abuse. Like I said, 1 in 9 will experience abuse in their lifetime, and that happens. And the rate of men coming forth is nowhere near the rate that women come forth inside of it, because our society is really having to make great strides. Because when you start looking at the identities and the labels that we talk about in masculinity, you said it earlier. What man really want to be able to say, let me call 911 because I'm in an abusive relationship? Who can I
Exactly.
talk to? Can I talk to my friends? Can I talk to anyone? And generally, he doesn't feel that he can talk to anyone because of the fact he feels a sense of shame, a sense of weakness, a sense of inadequacy, and sometimes can be very well trapped within other cultural norms. My mom, my dad told me never to yell at a woman, never to hit a woman, and definitely we're not advocating that. So a man who may find himself in that situation there, knows that they're being mistreated, but he feels helpless. What can I do? I can't hit her. I can't put my hands on her, things like that. What do I do? I love her. I want this to work. And then those same things start happening. You get looped right back in that same type of things. And those are things that we have to consider because, we used to talk about early warning signs and red flags, and there was a lot of things that was actually tangible things that we can see, and like we talked about earlier, the isolation, all that. But what about when it starts off with love bombing? Love
Hmm.
bombing, all the flattery in the world. I love you. uh the intense flattery early in the relationship, wanting to move so quickly. That's love bombing, right? That's
Yes.
setting you up
Yes.
for something, your
Yeah. I
expectation.
can't wait to marry you. I can't
Yeah,
wait to, you know, be in the same house with you. And why don't we just live together?
exactly. Exactly. And those things happen. And then it moves into stuff like, these demands that start happening, the rigid roles that one is expecting from the other person. So when that happens, uh, they may insist that you obey them. Stay
Hmm.
home. Well, you don't need to work. Stay home. Okay.
I
Uh,
got you.
or I got you. They want you to give up your autonomy. All those things happen inside of abusive relationship. And then one that is very readily can identify when a person finds themselves walking on eggshells. And what does that mean? feeling constantly, and I'm not talking about a little bit, but feeling constantly anxious about, about upsetting that person or not,
Oh, I live
constantly
that
anxious about,
every day. Every
yes,
day I live that, Dr. J. Walking
yes,
on eggshell. My stomach was in knots every single day. I was married for 19 years, and 17 of those were domestic violence. Didn't
wow,
know who I was going to wake up to. Didn't know who was going to come up in the house, what that looked like every day.
absolutely,
Constantly in knots.
absolutely, and finding yourself changing your behavior to avoid conflict with your partner, and that's important. And those of you that are listening to us right now, thank you. Welcome, Dolly. Good evening to you that are watching. Please share. Please share this on your page. Please share this with others. And if you're watching today and perhaps you have a question or comment or whatever, please put it there in the comment section that we may be able to see it, especially if you're on StreamYard, because we want to be able to answer some of these questions. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, among other things there. And it is a time that we try to intensify raising awareness. People, listen, these abusive relationships are going on. There are people that sometimes are in abusive relationship, but they don't label it that way because the fact they simply have not been hit yet, or they simply have not had
Hmm.
that moment. But you got to understand, it's not physical abuse that qualifies it as abuse. You got to understand that. Earlier, you heard Dr. Val talk about things like mental abuse, emotional abuse, even economical abuse, controlling finances and controlling money. You're talking about not only that, you got abuse that happens, sexual abuse. All of these things are part of these things that happen. And they don't just walk up and say, hey, I'm an abuser. You will begin to notice it by the behavior. It's a pattern of behavior. This is the way this person operates. It's the MO. And you can tell when they're manipulative or when they're narcissists. These things begin to show up in a way that oftentimes that are disguised for a period of time, but they are there. And so you may look how do I say? Sometimes you'll see gradual escalation, right? It doesn't start off with power, but gradual escalation inside of this. It starts with small things like criticism,
Hmm. Hmm.
control, little small things, criticism
You
and
gonna wear
control.
that? Why do you have that on? Why
Yeah,
is your hair like that? Why you have on so much makeup? Why don't you put on some makeup? Oh, you gaining a little weight, aren't you?
yes,
You getting a little thin. What's going
yes,
on with you? Why are you looking
exactly.
like that? And it chips away from you emotionally from the inside, and mentally you become unstable because again you walk around on eggshells because you're walking around in fear, and they control you with the finances, and the abuser, he has insecurities themselves. So they
Exactly.
want to put that on you because of their insecurities, because
Exactly.
they don't have anything really going on. So if they and the abuser knows who he can control and manipulate. They know
Well,
who you are before you know.
you said something so important.
The
You're right.
signs are there, and they were like, okay, I did this and they reacted. Okay, let me go to the next level. They go there and you just relax and take, sure, okay, all right. And then you go to the next thing. Okay, all right, you okay with whatever they bring to the table, so they control you and manipulate you. And that is a form of abuse.
Absolutely. And we have to be able to watch these patterns and what's happening inside of our dynamics. Sometimes people are blindsided only because of the fact that sometimes people enter into relationships with their own deficiencies. The need to be loved, the need
Mm.
to, I just want to be loved and accepted. Oftentimes, that person's that abusive partner starts off sweet, starts off with all the excessive. Here's the flowers, here's the gifts, here's all those things there. But man, when that control, that temper, those type of things where you're starting to be minimized and and talked down to, and all type of condescending behavior, you begin to notice, and you start saying, wow, I don't know what's going on with you. Maybe they're having a bad day. Notice what happened. You start finding ways to try to justify what's happening, and
What's happening?
Or you'll start justifying and say, well, they're just going through a lot because of the fact they're going through a lot of pressure on their job, or they're going through things in their family. And so we begin to justify their action and behavior. But the reality is this is their motive of operation. And this is what it is. And so you have to be concerned about yourself, concerned about your own life. And if it's a matter that you may not see your own worth, because the individual does a great job of tearing down your sense of self-worth, your sense of who you are, tearing down the fact of how you see yourself. They can name call, calling you ugly and calling you, nobody gonna want you anyway, and putting you down, calling you dumb, and you lucky that I'm even paying you attention.
Yeah,
These
heard
things
all of that.
Yeah, and they can chip away at you, chip away at the way you see yourself, chip away at the way that you see life. And the thing about it is this: sometimes even a survivor may give the appearance that I'm a strong person, but they can get broken down by words. They can be broken down inside of situations that undermine who they are. Things that are, and then the quick, after the abuse happens, that sense of apology and begging, baby, please forgive me. I was just going through. It won't
Look
happen
what you made
again.
me do.
Exactly.
I
And keep
love
in
you
mind when
so
it's
much.
said,
You made me do this.
exactly. And then think about this, Dr. Val, is that sometimes they say, I'm sorry, it'll never happen again until it happens again.
Until it happens again. Until it happens again. Until it happens again. It's a
Exactly.
repeated cycle that happens. And unfortunately, it's not going to get any better, Dr. J.
No.
This dispensation that we're in right now, where people are being laid off from jobs, they don't know what the next step is going to be. So they're walking in fear. And to have or be in a relationship with someone and the fear of maybe losing that person will be like
Yes.
a final straw for them. If you lose your
Exactly.
job, then you lose this, you lose your car, you don't, you can't pay your rent. And now you talking about leaving me. That escalates the cycle of abuse and physical abuse. Because, okay, now they were like, okay, I can't control you this way. The only way I know to control you is to overpower you physically. And then if I
Yes.
can't overpower you physically, then if you want to leave me, ain't nobody else going to have you. So let me just take your life right now. And then I'll just take mine too. So a lot of that has been going on self-inflicted wounds of the abuser after he has killed that person that he's in a relationship with. So we have to be careful and watch these signs that are happening right now so that we'll know how to remove ourselves gradually from the situation of danger. And what you say, Dr. Bell, well, how am I going to get out of it? I see all these signs and stuff. So what should I do? First of all, communicate and tell people, that this is happening to me. And don't just tell anybody, don't just go around blabbing this is going on. Tell somebody that you know, like, and trust, that will keep it confident, but watch for you, have your back in case you need an extra exit strategy quickly, that they will be aware of the situation where you can call and say, I need you, and they know to act right away and put uh, plans in place of what that looks like for an extraction.
Yeah, you're exactly
So
right.
have
And
it
what to
laid out, just, so make sure that you have the right connections in place. And, a lot of times, because I was in this situation, I was financially challenged because you controlled all the money. So therefore, I didn't have any money. So I wound up homeless. And I took my 4 children because he didn't want them. So me and my 4 children were homeless, and I had no money. But I always worked. Here's the thing. I always worked. I always brought the money in. So, but I was handing it over to pay the bills. And there was a time that mentally I was in such a fog that I didn't realize I'm out here working, paying all the bills while they chilling and doing this and doing that. And I'm the one working. And then when the rug seemed like it was snatched from under me, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to make it? And I was riding down the street one day, Dr. J, dropping the kids off from work, and I'm just crying. And I had got a job, and I bought a raggedy hoopty car. This guy was selling it for $1,000. And I told him, I said, listen, I'm homeless now and I need to get on my feet. I don't have any transportation and I don't have any money. I had my last paychecks. So I took the money and I handed it to him. I said, this is all I have, $750. He felt so bad. He gave me back money. Said, you're going to need some insurance. I didn't even think about insurance. I'm like, give me the keys, give me the title saying it's mine so I can drive. All I got, put some gas in the car and be done. He said, no, you're going to need insurance. And so he gave me back. So I wound up paying $500 for this car that I could see the highway. While I was riding down the highway, I could see the highway, the black pavement driving down. Then when it rained, all the water would splash up from the floor. But I was okay because I had my peace of mind. Sometimes you're going to have to be in situations where it's going to be uncomfortable. But knowing that greater is coming, and being that I was able to build my way up, my daughter said to me when I was crying on my way dropping off from school, she said, Mom, why are you crying? I said, I don't know how I'm going to make it. I don't know how I'm going to be able to take care of y'all. She said, Mom, you've been doing it all the while. And and it seemed like I had an aha moment because although my partner wasn't doing anything, mentally, I was like, he's controlling everything. He's doing everything. What am I going to do without him? Because psychologically, he had me thinking that I could do nothing on my own, that I wasn't going to be able to make it. And she says, Mom, you've been doing it all along. You've been taking care of us. You've been driving us to school. You've been working. And I'm like, hey, this check is mine.
You know what? Your daughter reminded you of something inside of that which you was doing already. What I've discovered over the years is that culture affects so many things, right? Good afternoon. Yes, Dr. Janice Johnson and Dr. Maricelis Hernandez. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. And thank you for being with us. What happens sometimes is that also abusive relationship can be influenced by, and meaning when I say influenced by, it can be perpetuated also by our religious beliefs. What do we mean? Because we're taught that we got to stay together, who God joined together, let no man put us under, and that's still the word of God. When we're told the fact that you made your bed, you lay in it, when we're told things such as, listen, to death do us part, and all those things are things that are inside of context. And those things are fine when you say them just by themselves, but when you put them inside of a contextual situation, I said that because the fact when you, like you were in your relationship with the person who was a minister, and so you had all of those things working, right? This is the way we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be able to make it through any and everything, and that's true. But when you find yourself in a situation where you're being manipulated, when you're being mistreated, when you are constantly being, if you would, twisted and blamed and accused, and the other party sees no reason to improve, or the other party doesn't see anything wrong, or the other party feels that they're entitled to, you've got to ask yourself a question. Hold up. Is this the will of the Lord?
Right.
Is this the will of, and I ask that question for this reason here, because the fact, so often, as we both know, as we travel nationally and all over, have been on many different shows, one of the most prevailing questions that I'm often asked is the fact is that they ask the question, is abuse, is domestic violence, is that a biblical reason for divorce? Notice where people go. Is that a biblical reason for a divorce? And here's my very simple answer inside of that. See, it's not the divorce that broke the marital covenant. It was
Right.
the abuse and the
Yes.
domestic violence that broke the marital covenant, because the Bible declared, husband, love your wives, even as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. What part of Christ loving the church and giving himself for it resembles abuse?
Mm.
As a matter of fact, it's just the opposite. It is a sacrifice. It is self-sacrifice. It is giving of yourself, understanding that. So one of the things that happen is this sense of power and control that oftentimes come from people who hold position.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. People that hold position, whether it's position in the church, whether it's position in community, whether it's position in athletics, that power control, the need to dominate and control and to feel justified in doing so.
Very justified.
And so with that comes the sense that you're supposed to do what I say do no matter what. But I come to serve notice is that when we are abusive, when we're abusive to an individual, we're not only abusing our authority, we're abusing our power. Why? Because it ought to be a privilege and an honor. When you and I have power, our reaction to power is to honor God with the power that we have. To honor God with the power. In other words, thank you for entrusting me with this. And
Right.
so if we look at it through that lens there, and if I abuse that power, then guess what? I've shown God and you that I'm not trustworthy.
Hmm.
I'm not trustworthy with the power that I've been given. Because this power that I've been given, I should be able to love better. I should be able to understand. I should be able to be more compassionate. I should be able to be that person that's discerning. But when I don't, then I think that I control things. And how many times do we see that happening all over? We see it happening in the church. We see it happen in society. We see it happening. And so people start conforming to roles. You know how many, and you were one of those people, right? How many times that there are women in position, first ladies and whatever,
Hmm.
they're
Yes.
made to put on this role, happy, and we take these great pictures and we look good together with a power couple and all those things, but we're living a lie. We're
Absolutely.
living
I
a
mean,
lie.
it affects me even today, Dr. J, when it
Yeah,
relates to church and, you this minister, you this and that. I don't get caught up in all of that, where you got to sit at the front row and then I still have I'm still traumatized, if you will, by so where that doesn't phase me. It doesn't take away from who I am. I'm called by the Lord regardless of where I sit.
exactly
So,
right.
uh,
And exactly
but
right.
but like you say, society will put this mandate on you, and you have to live in this box. And that's why I'm glad we did that series years ago called "Domestic Violence in the Silent Church,"
Absolutely. Absolutely.
which
And
was
that's
a
the thing about
very
it.
powerful piece. I know you could tell our listeners how they can get that, but it is a very powerful piece. I don't know if you have it on your website.
I don't. We're bringing that back with a second updated version of that, because in
Okay.
fact we did that. Oh, goodness gracious! Imagine we did that 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we did domestic violence in the silent
And the
church.
silent church. Dang, you're telling the age. I just
Yes,
celebrated my 66th birthday
yeah,
too.
that's right. You just had a birthday a couple of days ago inside of that. But we've been on this field for
I
a long
survived
time.
it. You believe that? I
Uh,
survived domestic violence. And I tell you, a lot, as I said earlier, a lot of men and women have not survived and they did not make it because their abuser taken their life. I mean, every day you turn on the television and there is domestic violence incidents where a life is taken, even a whole family, and sometimes the perpetrator will kill the children and keep the mother alive just so that person could be in pain for the rest of their lives. So it is just a terrible cycle that keeps happening, and it keeps being shown on television and people keep watching it and they do nothing. I
and they
mean,
do
even the
nothing.
police department here is under scrutiny because of the fact that a woman had a restraining order and she called the police and kept calling them, kept reporting everything, and they did nothing. You know, I don't even encourage women to get restraining orders for that very reason, because with the restraining order, I know it's a step that is taught to do for domestic violence, but me personally, I don't say it because of the fact that that perpetrator is served. And even if you move to a safe place where they don't know where you are, the fact that you have to put your address of where you are, they get that address. They know where you work. They know where the
Yeah.
kids go to school, and they stalk you, and you call the police and they may or may not come at that moment, or they may take their time because they're not equipped to handle this need, this great need that is before us in this nation of domestic violence. So a lot of people wind up losing their life, even with a restraining order. I feel it incites the perpetrator even more so to be angry, because now you're trying to castrate them from that little bit of manhood that they thought they had by saying, you can't do that. You can't control her. You don't own her.
Well, there's a lot of truth in that, but it goes back to that perpetrator inside of the fact of feeling like they have absolute power. And so when you start talking about the restraining order, okay, in theory, a restraining order is a piece of paper that is backed up by law that says what you shouldn't do. But here's the reality. From the very beginning, they shouldn't do. They shouldn't abuse. They should. And you think about it, all the weight really falls on the victim so many times, right? Okay,
Yes.
so what happens is that you know the victim is caught up in an abuse relationship, and guess what? When it gets to the place that they can't take it, who ends up leaving the house? The victim and the kids. Now they've got to find a way to be safe. They've got to find a way to do those things there. And so one of the things that is so important is the fact that if you are keeping a record, if you are calling the police, the thing about it, I always encourage this. I encourage that if you're going to get help, get help. But if there's a victim advocate that you can work with and exclusively with, that is important. Someone who can help advocate on your behalf. Secondarily, is this: there comes a time where you have to consider your safety over your shame.
Yes.
Safety over shame. And I'd say that particularly for women and people that are what in the church, people that are affluent, people that supposedly have reputations. Oftentimes they are trapped behind the very thing that they're trying to protect. So one of the reason why domestic violence can come to church and why it can happen that way, and why you don't see a lot of clergy and pastors preaching about it, because we all buy into this fantasy that, oh, the people that come to church are just good people, they're
They're
a great
just
family.
saved.
And so folks will come to church and they will act out what this image that's projected on them, and we don't allow a space for them to be themselves. No, they're broken. There are things happening in their family that they need deliverance from. There are things that are happening there that they really need some real attention to. And so what happens is that oftentimes clergy is deceived, because people come in holding hands, looking at each other, smiling, and especially in the black church, we talk to each other during church more than anybody I know. Tell your neighbor this. Look at your neighbor. Tell this. Look at your neighbor. Say, I'm tired of being in this abusive relationship. Look at your neighbor and say, listen here, something's got to break. Okay,
Help.
something's got to change. And that's the real message that needs to be there.
Absolutely.
But we don't speak to it because we don't want to mess up what I call this fabricated cosmetic church. The reality is that people are suffering in silence. They're
Absolutely.
suffering in silence. Some people are don't you dare say nothing. Keep your mouth closed. Don't make me have to hurt you. Don't you mess up what we got here. The reality is, when I look at it that way, Dr. Val, we have to get back to God's heart. Is it more important for me to placate, to pretend, for the folks in the church or for the folks in my sorority or fraternity? Is it more important for me to play cake and pretend in front of them, or to really get help, to be healed? And I understand. Some people say, but I don't want to get them in trouble. And I got that.
Exactly.
But you know what? My word is to the person who's doing the abusing. You ought to consider that before you abuse. Perhaps you shouldn't want to get in trouble. There's a lot of work to be
Exactly.
done. A lot of work to be done.
A lot of work to be done, and we're going to continue this
Yeah.
on our next show. So, we hope that you would tune in and follow us. And Dr. J, tell them about your nonprofit, please, and how they
Yeah.
can support it.
Absolutely. My nonprofit is Destiny by Choice, where we're empowering lives and shaping destinies, that are affected and impacted by domestic violence and other social ills that are happening there. And you can reach out to us, of course. manofpurpose2000@gmail.com is not only our email address, but it's also our Zelle address. And as you can see on the screen earlier, we had there the Cash App, which is basically $ Dr. J.R. Thicklin 82. And listen, whatever you give makes a difference in serving people that are impacted by domestic violence. And we're talking about from teens and children all the way to the seniors and elders. This is crucial in this day and time.
Absolutely, Dr. J. And also, those that follow me, mine is from the soul of a woman. And you can also give to support the Soul of a Woman Foundation. I'm so terrible at this. Um, Val in Parker, or you can go to my website from thesoulafowoman.com to give, but that is the Cash App. But moreover, what I would like you to do this month of October, I know a lot of you watch the show on Facebook and LinkedIn, but
YouTube.
what I need you to do most of all is to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Hot Topics from the Soul. Doesn't cost you anything except for just clicking the button and subscribing. That's what I would like for you all to do so that you can stay connected with us. Do Hot Topics from the Soul, our YouTube channel, and I would so greatly appreciate it. Dr. J, this has been a powerful show, and I think it's always powerful when we give information to empower individuals to embrace a larger vision of themselves, because of the fact that so many people have been stripped away mentally, emotionally, and even physically of the natural state of which God commended them to be. And I want to encourage individuals to stand strong and open your eyes, get help, and keep asking for help until you get it. Don't stop requesting help, and be careful about those individuals you share with, because we don't want gossipers, we want helpers.
Absolutely. And Dr. Val, you put up a little earlier the 1-800, the National Domestic Violence Hotline there, and we're going to put it up again for you. No matter where you are in the country, this domestic violence hotline is for you, and it's going to be very important that as you do this, 1-800-799, I believe it's 2733, 1-800-799-SAFE, and that's important. Listen, don't let fear, don't let shame, and we understand that, when we don't, our silence only perpetuates the violence. But I want you to know that you don't stand alone. You do not stand alone. Reach out. This is a time to make a difference inside of it. Those of you that are watching today, you may want to share with someone. Share it with someone that even in those circles there, Dr. Val and myself, we're both. We're definitely both available to come speak to not only congregations, speak to organizations, as we do speak to schools inside of it. But those particularly things that we definitely specialize in speaking to the places of worship as well. And speaking to this, because the culture of violence, that culture of violence doesn't just impact today, it impacts the future generations. And we see it happening over and over again. Let's be part of that solution. Let's break the back of domestic violence, and let's rise up from this situation, and let's make it better for us all. And just remember.
Absolutely, Dr. J. Thank you, and we appreciate you, followers. Don't forget to go subscribe to Hot Topics from the Soul on YouTube. Peace and blessings.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, hot topics from the soul.